and then we'll jump on. It takes about 2 minutes for everyone to come in, but
Yeah.
everything you say can and will be used against you from this point forward because it will be on the replay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about the
Thanks.
delay. I was having a little daddy duty, you know, little daddy duty.
I over sometimes. That's all right.
Yeah, what can you do? They are what they are. Let me
Yeah.
make sure everything is copacetic. Let's see. Oop, what are we doing? Oh wait. Okay, we got Mish Morskyj. Right?
Yeah. Well done.
Is that's got to be? Is that shortened?
Ukraine.
Oh, it's Ukrainian. Okay,
Yeah.
Ukraine. I'm thinking of yeah. God, that's a strong region. That area. Well, there's some of those states, I guess, or countries. I've met a lot of people: Lithuania, Latvia, Ukraine. I don't think people realize how big that place is. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you know how much influence it's had, in the world. Let me see.
Oh,
Save
absolutely.
draft. It looks like we're coming online now. I think. Let's see if I can see. Yeah, you look good on there. I look like hell.
I wouldn't say that.
It's okay. I'm okay with it. I'm all
I
right with it.
think you're
Hair's
right.
turning white, it's falling out. I mean, geez, what's going on here?
Mine's doing the same. Getting
I
there.
know more people have told me they talk about that. Yeah, a lot of people lose their hair because it's what do they say? It's like the once something to do with galactic memory, something like
Oh,
that. Who
I don't
knows? There's so
know.
many different narratives out there.
Yeah, there is,
So,
isn't there?
mhm.
But depending on what you really believe, I mean, it could be a conscious collective belief as well.
Yeah, everything's getting thrown into the fire of transformation or whatever you want to call it, Callie's bonfire or whatever. But it's good to have you here. We got Trish here. Morgan just reminded me I'm 60, but I'm not 60. Not yet. Almost. Mish Morsky's in the house, Ukrainian descent, and probably some combination of universal mutt to include Syrian, Pleiadian, Arcturian, and who knows what else. Now, we, in typical Soulogy fashion, we don't know each other. We have a very beautiful, beloved, brave sister by the name of Melina Ferguson who brought you to the table, brought you to the party, which we're real happy to meet you. So we'll get to know each other, just spontaneously in front of everybody. So thank you for coming and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And I know you're friends with Melina. We won't hold that against you, but tell us a little bit about yourself. What's happening? We'll talk about what's happening now, as uh, we both expressed when we first said hello. But yeah, what's going on? Who's Trish? Mish. Sorry, Mish.
Yeah, well, I'm over in Melbourne, first of all, in
Ah,
Australia, and Melina is beautiful. Like, I've been doing her essences, and man, they are so powerful. So really incredible stuff with her, which is really beautiful. Yeah, but it is pretty crazy over here at the moment. Like,
yeah,
so much energy going on. It's been like a really intense past, like the Scorpio moon that's just come in as well has really packed a punch, I think, for the energies at the moment, especially around
yeah.
Melbourne, like getting pretty full on with protesting and people coming together. Actually, there's been a lot of change. Like, as much as we see so much upheaval on our planet in so many different ways with the COVID and everything, I feel like yeah, there's some really big changes that are really beautiful that are happening as well.
That's good to hear. There's no doubt that that's some type of epicenter. You know, could
Oh,
even be
definitely.
could even be ground zero, really, based on of course, if you look at some of the narratives of the formation or origination of Mu or Lemuria, before the
Mm.
continent split up. And then of course what's happening. I mean, we've talked about it on this show where the impression from us, those of us who are not Australian, there was always this, this perception that, wow, that's a really cool place. They're a big island. They've got a lot of room. They seem pretty progressive. They're very it just seemed like a really cool, liberal, environment. And then you find out, 20 years ago, guns were taken. Not that I'm a gun fanatic, because I'm not, but the point of it, the disempowerment of it, I guess. And then, of course, everything that's occurred over the last 18 months, which is almost mind blowing. I mean,
Absolutely.
we're talking, I don't think I'm being extreme here, but and I don't go visit it very often, but we're talking straight up Nazis. The only thing you could really compare it to in the modern world, right? I mean, it's just like, but then if you look at it from our perspective, it's like, wow, this is perfection. Like, you can see the dynamics which you just referred to, and I'd like to hear more about it. I'm sure everybody else would too. Like, I saw, and I know it's not Victoria, but I saw the Queensland, New South Wales border this past weekend. It was like, whoa, there was like thousands of people. And then, of course, Melbourne itself, I saw this past weekend, there were, it looked to be, I think I saw one report, it was 25,000 people. I mean, so you don't see this on the mainstream, obviously. You just pick it up in pieces on social media, but it sounds like you're kind of plugged in over there. Can you tell us what's happening, or from your perspective?
Yeah, like there's a new legislation coming in, which is changing the powers of our government, which the people are rallying against. And it's, switching things from a pandemic, or from the state of emergency to a pandemic rule. And when you actually read through the legislation, there's a lot of disempowerment for the people. It's taking sort of control into one sort of mainstream area. But, we had, I think it was 30,000 people that rallied last weekend. And I reckon we'll double that at least, or hopefully even more.
Double.
This week coming up. Yeah, because the legislation went through the lower house, and then it's going through the upper house on Tuesday next week. So people have been out every day trying to make a stand.
That's an extraordinary number of people. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
considering the level of suppression that y'all have experienced, and from, I haven't seen one in a while, and I think what I saw was pictures, but from this past weekend. But it's certainly a different situation than what I was looking at 2 or 3 months ago, or when you had like the truckies, or I think y'all call them the tradies,
Mm-hmm.
and there was substantial participation, but it seemed to be negated or neutralized, even though I know, and everybody knows, that the real story wasn't getting out, because occasionally you'd see like a picture from a helicopter, and you'd see all these people, and they'd say, oh, there's only 100 people there, but there's quite a few more. But this sounds like this is, a very positive thing. There would have to be, in my mind, major, a major opposition to suppress it at this point, if you got that many people, and I don't see that happening. But have you been out there, or where are you getting your information from?
I'm heading out there on Saturday, but I've
Hmm.
been keeping watch with it, and I've got friends going in and out and keeping me updated just through working. But I have cleared my Saturday, and I'm in there this weekend. I just have so much love for the people who are really standing to fight for the rights of everyone. And it's not about being vaxxed or not vaxxed, or it's about legislation. It's about people having the power back, and it's about the government working for the people, not the people working for the government.
Exactly.
And so I think it's created like a huge community of people, and it's created huge connection between people, especially after being in lockdown for the last 2 years, basically. I'm fairly lucky. I'm out in the regional areas in the country, so our lockdown hasn't been as tough as what it's been for some of my friends in Melbourne. But people are selling their houses; they can't afford to pay their rent, or their mortgages. It's just really been quite sad. It's been devastating for some people. But I really feel, Todd, that like on an energetic perspective, there was so much underlying turmoil on a conscious level with our governments and with our people and the way that life is flying along. Like when we first went into lockdown, it was incredible the peace and harmony I felt in the area. And I know there was still also a lot of fear, but the peace and the harmony that people actually got to stop work and breathe for a moment, you know,
Mhm.
because everybody's working so much. They're just
Mhm.
so consumed with like survival and living and money and coming back and home and dinner and TV and so forth. I mean, we don't, you know, some of us do it, not all of us do it, but it's a big part of our society is the way that it's been running. And I remember walking around feeling really like this feeling of relief, you know, going through the planet of like, I can take a break. I can
Yeah.
have some time off. And it was, you know, for the first part, as much as it was scary for a lot of people, it was also like I saw so many people out walking, whole families together walking because they actually had time together and they needed to get out of the house, you know, so they were walking through the streets. And I just couldn't get over how many people were out and about. It was beautiful, you know, and the animals that were coming out. So there was a real shift for Mother Earth, a real shift
Absolutely.
in pollution, in so many things. You know, she
Just
really,
the yeah, just like the hamster on the wheel energy versus
yeah,
the yeah, you know, it's such a and you're right about that. We were in Florida when it happened, and there was a little park by the house that we were staying at, and yeah, this stuff came out like almost right away. Like within 2 or 3 months, everybody was saying, "Wow." So the education system, which is an indoctrination system, is being shut down. The medical system's being, you know, got a lot of pressure on it. You know, all the apparatuses of the matrix whatsoever were being basically signs of being deconstructed. And I think to your point, you know, of course, you had the pulled out of the routine, or let's just
hmm
say the almost like the trance, and actually, and then people spending time with themselves, people spending time with people they live with, who they probably hadn't talked to in 20 years. There were some remarkable posts and stuff. I mean, but and then in terms of like as things began to settle a little bit, of course, going back to your country, okay, or let's just say that part of the world because it's all of our world, right? But there was this, like what you're talking about. There was this that same thing carried over there, and almost like a, yeah, we can do this. We're going to support this, you know. But then, since then, gradually, it's been like these very blatant, overt, flagrant uh, uh, presentations of just straight up bullshit. And I
hmm
realize it's not about a vaccine. It's not about that. It's really a general thing about disempowerment and hey, this cognitive dissonance. Yeah, you're saying one thing, but you're doing another. Like your
hmm
parents when they would tell you, "Don't do as I say, not as I do," kind of thing. So there's been this whole evolution. The whole world's watching, particularly there, where
mm
it seems to be the center of the epicenter. But
Yeah.
are you getting what are you getting from the collective there? Are they getting fed up? Are they angry? Are they still harmonious? Are they saying, "Hey, let's work this out"? Are they even being given opportunities, afforded opportunities to work it out in a compromising fashion with the leadership? I mean, what's happening?
Yeah, I think it's been very difficult in that sense. Like when I feel into the conscious collective, there feels like, particularly here, there feels like a real separation has happened.
Mhm.
So people are starting to separate, and you have like there's people who are coming together in communities, but they're two separate communities. Like there's a lot of um, opinion and a lot of trying to work out what's truth and what's not truth, trying to understand everything that's going on because we have so much information coming in and people are getting very confused about what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
And so it's creating fear with the unknown, and that's one lot of people. It's creating strength and courage, to stand strong and to really speak truth for another, part of people. And then there's also another, well, there's quite a lot of sections actually when I feel into it right at this moment, because there's also those people who just don't know how to deal with this. So I'll just keep doing what I need to do over here because it's too much for me to take on. I don't understand. I don't have the knowledge. I don't want to hear it. Like there's a lot of fear in change or the difference or what's going to happen. Just let's get back to normal. Let's get back to normal.
Yeah.
So there's this
right.
let's live how we were living before. So, but it's not going to be like that. Like it's completely changed everything. Everything.
Yeah, it's such a perfect example of as within, without, right? Because it's like so many people in these communities talk about and experience the dark night of the soul, or I should say plural, but the same dynamics are there. So like the cognitive dissonance, the avoidance, the ostrich with its head in the sand, like you're talking about, I want to go back to where it used to be or whatever it is. But once that we got nudged, there was no going back. And that's what you're kind of, that's what you're speaking to right now. Are you seeing, obviously there's a significant impact from what we might call the mother goddess energy, the divine feminine energy, as it has been expanding since 2012 in a very big way, bigger and bigger as time goes on. Are you seeing a physical representation of that in the streets of Melbourne?
It's interesting you talk about 2012 because 2012 is when we went into the, the planet Earth went into the photon belt. And it's such a brilliant 2,000 years for us to come because huge upheaval and change, but there's also such a connection to growth and expansion through light as well. So it's really interesting. Like when I feel into Melbourne itself and I look at that expansion, because it is all expansion, like it's just continuous expansion, whether we all expand, whether it's negative or positive, we just continue to expand and grow. You'll have to ask me that question again because I started going into this. Like,
I know I'm the same way. Don't worry about it. No, I was just saying because I've noticed a few videos over. I'm going to go back, just 3 or 4 months or whatever. There seems to be a physicalization of the divine feminine in physical form, starting to flex her muscles a little bit. And the last one I saw was this past weekend, I believe, or past week in South Australia in Adelaide, where this nurse, and this was a group of, I think, 2,500 nurses who were quitting their job because they didn't want to get a jab. And this woman just went on a 15-minute diatribe that just basically nailed everything. But it wasn't what she said. It was the frequency and the atmosphere of all of her sisters that I was just totally like, wow, there it is. Are you seeing that type of presence where the feminine is stepping forward and saying, I've had enough of this?
Absolutely. Like it's like the expression of truth that is coming out in the divine feminine is really, really strong. I have to say equal part to the divine masculine though, because we had, you may have seen that rally that all the workers did across one of the bridges, the Westgate Bridge.
Yeah, that was cool.
And all the blokes came out and they were like, cool. We're going to stand in our power. And they didn't even want to charge at the police. Like they came up to a massive roadblock. It was quite unfortunate actually what happened. And they went around it and then continued to keep marching. So just like as in the divine feminine, the divine masculine is matching that frequency a little bit. I think we're coming into balance here. And when I saw that fantastic footage of that woman and just hold her stance, like she was strong and she was ready and she was there. And I feel that is definitely coming up stronger and stronger. I can feel the intensity of people actually taking the very first step into their truth for the first time. I feel like it's been pushed into that action divinely but really stepping into that truth of being and allowing that divine feminine to come up and rise. It's all over Melbourne, everywhere. I'm seeing it
Really?
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is really quite magnificent. Like it is really beautiful. And not only that, it's supported by the masculine. You
Yeah.
know, so even though we do have a lot of masculine energy that's going through our government, and it feels very off in there at the moment, but we have some strong female leaders coming in, MPs coming up and standing their truth as well, which has
Really?
been so inspiring to see, you know, which has also given those other, you know, beautiful divine feminines to come forward and actually go, oh, you're doing that. I can do that. I can do
Yeah.
that. So there's been beautiful leadership and a flow on effect from that. But also, though, you know, looking at women too in the home, or the beings who are in their divine feminine at home that are raising the families, I'm noticing this protection coming in as well. And that's also pushing the divine feminine up. You know, the protection of the family and the ways and what's happening and where we're going. You know, I'm seeing that
It's
happen a lot.
the mama bear energy that
Yeah, yeah,
some women
yeah,
have brought it up on this show. Yeah, it's like that mama bear energy. And
yeah.
even though the
Beautiful.
patriarch has been what it's been, which is to, you know, in general, empower the masculine or the male, there's
Mm,
still the old equation beneath the surface, and everybody knows this, that, you know, in that structure, if she's not happy, everything goes to shit, you know. But now, but like, you know, there's been that period of like, just sit back, let it happen, let it happen. But there just seems to be something associated with what that lady was doing as a representation of what's happening in general everywhere, I would imagine, because we've all seen it in the energetic field. But it's like, you know, you brought up a good point about the masculine too, because, you know, sometimes, you know, like blessings are burdens, burdens are blessings. The fact that the guns were taken away. One
mm,
of the things I noticed about that particular march that you were talking about, where they just went over to the other side of the road, there wasn't like, I mean, there was some people, there were some guys that were getting a little bit alpha male, but not very many. The alpha male frequency was coming from the police, you know,
absolutely.
but the men were, could be, and I had to, you know, I thought about this. Well, they don't really have a choice because they can't really fight guns, right? So I can see where there's a different resolution or a different path being created, which is both a combination of this expansion of the feminine and also the masculine warrior having to find another way to exhibit and engage, enact his power in what would be considered a non-conventional way. So it's interesting how this is unfolding, and it'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see what happens this weekend. You're saying that there's going to be another rally, and they're expecting more
yeah, this
people.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I think, you know, like we've had such amazing people bringing speakers and megaphones and setting up this beautiful space for the people to come in. It'll be definitely something to watch this weekend, I
Right
feel.
on.
Yeah, there's a guy who does some great footage, Real Ruskin, his name is
I know.
on
I
YouTube.
watch him. Yeah, I
He's
watch
brilliant.
him.
Like such a beautiful being. He's such an amazing man. He's just there for the people, and he's very honest and real with his information. He's probably been one of the best reporters I've seen. Who's
Yeah,
just
he's really
independent.
good. And, you know, I was just doing my thing. I think it was yesterday, and or maybe it was the night before. And Morgan sends me a note. It was in the middle of the night, and I woke up to go to the restroom. I came back. I looked at my message, and she says they just, you know, they just established this mandate where she's in Queensland, which is kind of, you know, like not as intense as some of the other one places, and you can't go here and you can't go there unless you have a vaccine, right? And I just
Mm,
told her, you know, I told her at that moment, I was just like, you know what? I'm so happy I'm not there, because even though I feel like, you know, like all of us, I've made some progress. I don't know how I could react. They'd put me in jail. I mean, like, I don't know how. I look at
yeah.
these, I look at the energy of, let's say, the enforcers, and some are women, you know, and I've watched a lot
Mm,
of videos, and I realized that you don't get, you just have to pick up this and pick up that. but I just can't see how that force will be able to contend with the numbers that you guys are experiencing now, and it looks like it's going to just increase, especially given the fact that the feminine voice is rising. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be like this smooth, seamless transformation. It looks like it's going to be like all of our transformations, which is we just drew a line in the sand and say, done, I'm done. I've had enough. It's time
Yeah.
to cut the BS and take responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And I think Berlin had a very similar legislation to us, and they got through with all that there with their pots and pans.
Do they really?
Yeah, it was pretty amazing actually. I was crying watching it. It was so beautiful, and they threw the
Really?
legislation. Yeah, it was really incredible. But it's interesting you say that because the other day I went down the street and I went to go into a shop and they said, "Are you double vaxxed?" And I said, "Well, no." And they said, "Well, you can't come in. You need to stay at the door." And I said, "Well, it's not actually government legislation that we can't go into a shop right now. And they said, no, it is. And I said, "Well, it's not." And the crazy thing is, like like Dan Andrews actually said, right, we're going to open up to everyone just for the week of the Melbourne Cup, and vaccinated and unvaccinated can go everywhere. But as soon as we hit 90%, vaccinated are out and unvaccinated are out. It's just creating such a divide between the people. And I think what people don't realize too is underneath, Todd, what's happening is there's such a fine manipulation energy that is moving through our earth on a very subtle way. Like, you hear people talk about the vaccines and how, oh no, you'll be safe if you have it and you won't get COVID. Like the mentality has gone from this, just to you allow, like you knew that the vaccine wasn't going to necessarily save you from COVID, may help your circumstances if you did get COVID. But now I could see this slow train of energy moving through and people just going, oh no, the vaccine's going to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get COVID. And it's so fascinating because it's so subtle, that manipulation, that it
Mm-hmm.
creates this way of thinking that once you think like that for a little while, you start believing where you are at and you forget what the facts are and what the facts are being stated by the government, by everybody.
That's
So
right.
I think this is where it really starts to change things. And I think when I was down the street and this person was saying this to me, and I said, "Oh, it's not legislation as yet, and it is okay." But I said, "But I understand if you as a business have a choice or you decide that that's what you would prefer to do, that I can accept. If that's your choice and that's your perspective and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But to state whether it's a government legislation or not, it's just,
Yeah, that's
but
that's such a great point that you're making. If you go back to the again to our closest origination point in modern history, it's Nazi Germany, and regardless of all the things that we think of when we think of Nazi Germany, uh, the one thing that we often forget is their number one, for lack of a better word, weapon was propaganda. And, the gentleman that was the chief propagandist became the chief public relations force or in the world after the war, right here in America. Now, my point is that their basic mantra was repeat something, literally, quote unquote, repeat a lie enough and people will believe it. And that's a really good point about what you're saying. But I think I want to go back to the beginning of what you said, because to me, that's the and you touched on it right now, is the greatest point. It's not about vaccines and it's not about mandates and it's not about, and if we just go back pre-COVID, we could pick anything, Trump here, Biden here, or other issues in other countries or ones that we share collectively. It's about creating that situation over and over again, which you experienced with the shop owner. The difference is a lot like what we were talking about with the March of the Truckies and the laborers is that they found another way. So as they were hit with that roadblock, which was so funny because they just went to the other side and then continued their march, you actually came into this scenario, which has been the really the template for our imbalance individually and as a whole has been division, right? Somebody just said divide and conquer. So you actually went into this situation. You're a feminine energy who's gaining more power. You go in and you basically found another way. Like, I don't even know what the outcome is on a literal basis. I have an idea, but energetically, you've had to have impacted this other person because it's something they've never seen before. You know, you were basically telling them, I respect your right to choose. You didn't say, so respect mine, but it's stated and it's imprinted in that moment. So that's a really important thing in my opinion.
Yeah. And you know, Todd, I do a lot of work with the Pleiadian emissaries of light, beautiful beings of light, absolutely beautiful divine constellation that they're in. And these beings, they love us so much on Earth, and they have their own agendas too. I mean, they're not more powerful than us or more, experienced in some fields, but we're experienced in other fields as well. So we really complement each other as working together with the Pleiades. And they have a really high invested interest in our Earth. And when I was talking to Anra the other day, and I was, expressing the things that were happening and looking for insight, and she said to me, I mean, it was so brilliant. She said to me, I said, well, everything's duality, isn't it? And she said, well, is it really duality? And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she said, well, we would look at it more from the perspective of it is your perspective or your understanding of what you are seeing and what you are attaching to that. So the outcome that you're attaching to it. So, for example, like I might see everything going really bad on the Earth at the moment, and that's my perspective because of my experiences that I've lived all the way up into this point. This is going to go deep, but stay with me.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
So your perspective creates absolutely everything that is reflected back to you in your reality. And so when I have a look at what's happening on the Earth, like we all have yes, we have duality. We have the scale of good and the scale of what we consider as bad. But once again, both of those two things are perspective and interpretation of what we experience. And so when I look at everything that's happening here, we've got like so many different perspectives going on, so many different experiences that people have had to get to that perspective, so many different belief systems that are driving that perspective or that understanding or that view or way or experience, that if we actually just stop for a moment and all chose, like they did this in Atlantis, like the Atlantean times, I've sort of looked into a lot of that time, and their ability with telepathy and everything else was just phenomenal and amazing. And like if we stop to actually consider what it is we do want and how energy works on a big playing field, like when we actually create that, like the guy with the water, was it Moto who did the water drop?
Emoto. Yeah, Dr. Emoto.
Yeah, like the same thing, like the vibration of the people created the change in the water. Like, and we are all walking around with this power, but not nobody thinks. We do think to tune in. We've got many beautiful beings on the planet who are tuning in and doing that. But can you imagine the gravity of that when we're in Melbourne, even, next Saturday, or the gravity of everybody coming together to create that energy wave that actually, changes all the existing energy waves around everybody. It changes the whole pattern and the dynamics of how things are. It creates and manifests into something else. And I find it fascinating because, I've worked in Pleiadian light work for 20 years, working with people. I love people. I'm just so fascinated with humans and the way we are and who we are. I love it. It's my life, purpose and passion. But I see a lot people stuck in a perspective because of certain ways, and that experience that actually regurgitates into their body and then gives them the sensation and the feeling of everything that they're experiencing from that perspective can just change so slightly to give a completely different experience. Like this week, like my son, he's just amazing. Like I've got a son on the Asperger's. He's got Asperger's. I don't know. It's just part of who he is.
He's gifted.
He's gifted. He's in tune. My daughter's the same. They're both really sensitive to energy, and so, I was arguing with him the other day, and I was saying, oh, the police were so brutal and they were so, horrible, and I hated it, and it was just so devastating to see. And he said, yeah, but wait, let's have a look at this. Like, how would you feel if you were an officer standing there in that fear, thinking, my God, I've got to hold all these troops back, and I've got to stand ground, and I've got to, do all these things. And I said, yeah, you're right. And he said, like, it is, the fear is astronomical. Have you thought about his life and where he's been and what he's doing and why he's got to that place and why he got to that point? And we're always talking about, harmonizing and looking at different viewpoints. And I said, you're so right. You're so right. Like,
absolutely,
he's having experience as well. And it's honoring those experiences in people to understand, instead of yelling at somebody like, you don't have a mask on, put a mask on. It's like,
well, and that's the point. And these young kids are amazing. And these kids with Asperger's, ADHD, and whatever the hell else we want to label them try, but yeah, you're right. And that's why I was saying, I don't see it being like this seamless transformation or seamless transition. Why would it be that? It would only make sense. Our changes in our lives have been radical. So many of the stories in 3,000 shows, they're all the same, and so that would only make sense. The other thing too is the importance of what you're saying. It's a great thing to have, let's say 25, 30, 50,000 people go somewhere, and to be met with what appears to be a polarity. Because I love what your guide says from Pleiades. Is it a duality, or is it a paradoxical polarity? Because if you look at even what people talk about in their own experiences and transmissions and so on, the data that's out there, it's all polarity. This isn't anything different than other parts of the universal. It's just here we have this exacerbation that we call duality, right? When in truth, it's all the same thing, right? But my point is you made the reference that there are some people who are understanding, just to paraphrase what you're saying, the quantum aspect of our reality that we've come into as we've gained awareness. I think what we have the most trouble with, and your son is on point, is thinking that it doesn't apply to mirrors of ourselves. We think it's just our environment. I think we're starting to understand that we're actually affecting other people. If I think you are less than you are, if I think something derogatory of you, or even if I go the other way of the 0 point field and I put you on a pedestal, I'm creating a storm. I'm creating, an eruption, or whatever you want to call it. There's an imbalance there. So, that's what I was referring to earlier with these masculine, powerful men standing up and not having weapons. That like changes. That's like a masterful stroke, right? And then to have the feminine, which you kind of exhibited in your interaction with that store owner, they're not going to come in here and try to do things in a structure that's the problem itself. You know what I mean? It's like trying to fix something with the components that are broken. They're actually coming in with this innate sacred wisdom that's innate within themselves, consciously or not, and they're going to say, and they're doing it. They're saying, everyone, just like your son said, everyone is considered in every decision we make. That's kind of the mentality or the frequency that seems to be coming to the surface. No one's left behind, or however you want to put it. It takes a village. I mean, these are feminine frequencies that are expanding, and it's going to be, I think it's going to come like that. Yeah. When that happens, I don't know, and I could be wrong, but I just see that at some point there's going to be it's just going to fall, but not like in the barbaric ways of our past, but in a different way. So this is
Mm-hmm.
exciting.
Yeah, it is. Like there was one really beautiful speech given by an ex-sergeant of the police force. And he got up and he was talking to the people and he said, he turned around, he said, I want to address the police officers. Like, we're standing here for you because when you take your uniform off, you're one of us. And we know how hard it is for you to do this job, to come up against us. But we want to tell you that there is no us. We are one as together.
Wow.
It was such a profound speech that the whole crowd of 30,000 people were cheering, and you could feel the police holding that space of going, oh, we're not separated for a moment.
Wow.
It was incredible. Like, just one man's speech had an effect on 30,000 people and all the officers that were there in that moment. That he just brought everybody together just through that one speech.
I mean, that's just like, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
so without creating division or separation, just trying to work through this in a conversation, I'm assuming, which I don't like to do, that speech wasn't on every channel in Australia during primetime news hour.
Yeah, wasn't on there.
Right. So, I mean, can you imagine you know what I mean? It's going to take like one guy like that, or one lady with that energy, or one producer in a TV station, or whatever, or one politician to say, here's the real scoop, or, you know what I mean? Just one. Could you, if that speech was, I mean, you talk about viral, like that would light the whole world up. That would light up the police officers, any one of them that watched it, that were in that situation. That's
so much acknowledgement. Yeah, it was very powerful. So you could see that beautiful man, like you were talking about the divine masculine before, you know, that beautiful man who made that speech was holding the surrender when he was making that speech, because he was holding compassion and acknowledgement, and then he was holding love instead of holding, you know, that real rigid, like, fight for your freedom feeling. He was holding the love. And he became the glue for everybody. It was really incredible. Like, it's amazing what we can do.
Just listening to you, because you know, I can see, like, in my head, you know, I can see the store owner, or, you know, or the police prior to the speech, you know, a policeman, right, or policewoman. It's fear. I'm operating off of fear of losing my job, fear of whatever, distorted masks, and I want to go crack some heads, or you know, and then here you have this other side, which is operating, you know, and I'm not trying to sound like a new ageist, but from peace, like peace of mind, like, you know, compassion, and you know what I mean? It's almost like some Bruce, our Soulogy Comics, mentioning in his great comments, but he says John Lennon, but which reminds me of the 60s, because I was young in the 60s and I remember all that happening, because it was on the news every night and you could feel it in the energetic field, but it got suppressed. And you know, Wall Street, what was it, 2008, when they had the sit downs in Wall Street, all that stuff was suppressed. But it feels like now that the force of transformation is too much for the old powerless powers that have been in place.
Yeah, it's definitely changing everything. I mean, it's pretty incredible to come together. And like, it's not just here in Australia too. Like, we've noticed countries, like we get a lot of footage on, you know, Telegram and other different platforms of countries rallying for Australia. I mean, it's been so beautiful to see that the world is also watching and supporting, you know, and it's been a great gift for us to feel that love and compassion coming from all over the world, just like we have had for all over the world as well, you know, especially the United States with everything, well, all of the countries that have been going through it. I mean, it's not just one country. All of us are going through the different states, like even in, I think it was Amsterdam, talking to a friend in Amsterdam, and she's unable to go and all her shopping is online now. You know, like it's incredible. Like the people that are connecting over the internet, you know, and the way that we are bringing people together as one. Like it truly is like a pivotal point in our history of Earth in these times to actually shift. And I really feel like I noticed too, like when people started going into lockdown, that my work increased, like it went off the charts. I thought that's unusual. I really would have thought people with lack of money, they might not, you know, that they would be struggling or not coming. But people actually had so much time to actually process their own stuff and to sit with their own feelings and to actually get back to their own truth. It was pretty incredible when you look at that on a worldwide scale of how many people have started to connect back to their own beingness and their own truth. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's, and yeah, I mean, and I think you make a good point too about the internet, because even though things aren't, you know, the handoffs aren't being made through what has been a more physical or conventional, you know, methods, there's something about the internet and the handoffs that take place that promotes and expands telepathy, intuition, and the parts of us and the experience that we share that have been in, let's just say, the non-physical. And to your point, there's this movement and growth that takes on physical characteristics after it's done. And we all have come to this. We know this. It happens in the energetic field first. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's like the receptivity of that which was in place being open isn't going to be like a little bit at a time like we've been programmed. It's going to be the opposite and just ripped off, you know. And I can imagine if that man was making a speech and that type of seed was being planted, and let's just say that police officer who understood, when I take this off, I'm one of them. Oh, I am one of them. I wonder when the first politician of any prominence is going to come into that awareness. You know what I mean? And it's just going to be like the soul contagion, the real virus, you know, is just really going to kick up. But yeah, I think I think that the Australian arena is the epicenter of this whole thing, which is quite fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's you know, just like going back from day one, I mean, I remember feeling quite lucky over here in Australia. I was thinking I was so lucky over here. Like we, you know, everything else was happening around the world. We had hardly any COVID cases. We were, you know, pretty sweet. Everybody was normal, and turmoil was happening all around the world. Or we were hearing about the turmoil around the world. And then boy, did that flip around. Boy, did that flip. You know, that flipped so fast. I think it put a lot of people into shock, like, whoa, we did not expect that. That was a huge awakening for a lot of people, like huge in itself. Like, look at that ripple effect. There's like a smack in the head, and it was just like, whoa, oh my God, what is happening here? You know, so yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing in play too with what you're talking about that comes with a higher level of awareness and empowerment and compassion and truth is at some point, and we know this, it's inevitable. This is the ascension. This is the great unveiling, right? That's what apocalypse means. That the truth behind the lies is going to be put out front and center. And we're talking about, I'm just giving examples, and I'm not saying, you know, but I'll just use the example of the nurse in Adelaide, when she said that, hey, I'm talking, and she was citing one of the local hospitals, 30 out of 38 that have COVID in the ICU have been vaccinated. So all of this information that's being withheld, and really, you know, not telling, if I don't tell you something, that's still a lie, right? So it's that whole thing. But what I'm getting at is I believe that it's extremely important, and I believe it's happening through like information that you're sharing. It's becoming obvious that it's not just the change and the truth coming into alignment. A big part of this is going to be our energy field, our actions as quantum co-creators when the shit hits the fan and the truth comes out, that we're going to have compassion for those that played the role, as your son pointed out about the police officer, including and not stopping at a Dan Andrews and those that have played these roles, because that'll be a choice point that we have. Are we going to fall back into the lower vibrational, revenge, patriarchal competition, comparison, all that stuff? Are we going to walk the talk? And I believe we will walk the talk.
Yeah, I think we will too. And I think that is such a crucial point. It's such a great point, Todd. I really love that. It is, how we take that forward, because it is a choice, and, choose the higher vibration, choose that higher perspective, because so much good will come from that. Like the expansion of that will be phenomenal. The compassion that I feel that everybody needs is just 100%. Like, it's okay that you went there. It's okay that that's where you were thinking, it's okay. When I heard a lady yelling at another lady for a mask and the lady was getting really upset, I said, it's okay that she's upset. It's okay that she's in fear. It's okay. Like, that's where she is right now. It's not actually at you. It's just where she is. She's just expressing her beingness of what she's experiencing. So you're right.
Yeah.
We'll hold compassion for all those people. That'll truly make an incredible shift on our planet. I'm excited about it.
It's going to be, it's, and what's amazing is, and it's such a perfect scenario that we've all created, whether we
have
conscious of it or not. That's right.
Yes.
And
100%.
but here you have, it's literally the epitome of the paradox, because you have,
absolutely.
you know what I mean? Because everything that is real is being suppressed and hidden. And everything that's not is being, and I keep thinking of the adage of the 1%. And I think, okay, well, that means that there's certainly plenty of evidence. All you got to do is look at the media. But so the 1% controls everything that's presented, right? That means that's 1% of what's out there. So there's this whole 99, right. You know what I mean? There's this whole 99%. I mean, to me, just being from the chair that I'm sitting in, and of course I'm connected through Morgan, although we both have kind of made the choice not to like swim in that all the time, but just to go in and get information and so on. But I pick up a lot from her. But I would have never thought, based on what I saw up to a few days ago, I would have never thought that there would be 25 or 30,000 people based on what I was seeing in Melbourne or any city over there anytime in the near future. But that's a great sign to me. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Pretty excited for Saturday, because so many more people are starting to question. And I don't think people have read the legislation, most of the people. So it's like, when you actually stop and start reading through it, it's okay at the start, and then you go, oh, whoa, and it changes. So, people are, and the stories are, moving out face to face, and it's good.
Well, it feels like a good sign too, because to me, October really felt like, and I've been saying that, it's been a stair step since 2012. It's just been a consistent stair step. We've never gone backwards. Every month's been bigger than the month before. And then October just seemed to be like, boom, like we just shot up. And to me, what's happened over there this past weekend and what's continuing to happen seems to be like a physical, replication of that energy. Like we've taken we've accelerated the timeline in a huge manner. So this is going to be exciting as we go. What, you guys are 11-11 today. It's a big gateway.
I know, 11-11-11. I know, great numbers. I'm a numerologist as well, and I couldn't not take those numbers, because I was like, oh, I love those numbers. It's going to be a good conversation.
Right on. So before we get out of here, and I would love to stay longer, but I got some stuff I got to do, because sometimes we run longer, but we could do it again, maybe after the first of the year or whatever. But but like, just, you talked about your relationship with the Pleiadians. Obviously, anyone that's done any research whatsoever understands the significance of the Pleiadian contribution uh, to our experience here on the Earth, and quite particularly in Australia with some of the Aboriginal oral history and such. But
Mm.
my question is, like, and I'm speaking in terms of your recent communion, your recent conversations, or however you want to put it. Uh, what type of intel, if any, are you getting in regard to the state of the union, where we're at? I'm not like trying to tie you in any type of predictions, because I think we all know those gone out the window now. But like, what's your feel from your relationship and your communications with your Pleiadian aspects?
There's a lot of stuff going on. We didn't get to tap on this, but there's a lot of stuff going on galactically as well with our planet. So that's a really big, chat for another time. But when I look at, like, even though things are reflecting down here, they're also reflecting in the universe as well. So galactically, a lot of things are happening, and there's a lot of rebalancing happening with all the planets, and also a lot of different galactic beings as well, which I work with, not for. And I feel that the most important journey forward for any human being having this experience is to start to have a look at oneself, into where your perspective is and to where you want to go, because everything is consistently creating off your field at all times.
Right.
And so to look into future markers, or to look into, ideals that come up, or to even forecast, there's a certain amount that can be forecasted, but the road ahead is always dependent upon the being that is creating, because
Yeah.
we're such creators and co-creators together. So my message would really be, in that sense, is to come back to where you are and have a look at what you're creating. Have a look at what you're thinking daily. Have a look at what you're projecting forward in this moment. Actually, this is a really good point. So just projecting forward where you are right here, right now, about where you want to be, because it's not often we tune into consistently creating forward in the future on how we want to feel. Yeah, you've already manifested everything you wanted, but it's just sitting there. So as soon as you line up with the vibration of it, or the feeling of it, then you'll start having the experience of it. So when I look at, say, this conversation that I was going to have with you, my intention was, I want to have this really beautiful connection with Todd. I want to feel a heart connection with him. I want to feel like a connection, and then a conversation like old friends. I want to feel like it's really easy. I want to feel like I'm just going to be myself, and I'm just going to love that. And it's just going to be really comfortable. And to be honest, I forgot we were even online, because it was just, effortless. But I really consciously created that intention so I could have that experience. So,
Right
it's the experience that I want to have. So it's the experience that we put out there, So I would say, like, to move forward, like, anything is possible from this point forward, but where is your perspective, and what do you want to happen? Like, what
Right.
do you actually want to happen? What's the vibration? What's the feeling you want to experience? Because this is all about having an experience.
That's right. Far out. All right, man. We got a lit sister in Melbourne, another one. God, you guys got a whole contingent of sisters over there.
I know, it's
Major.
so cool.
It is. I mean, it's just like major
Yeah.
pipeline over there. Just total.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you guys all came through Pleiades. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I'm
but,
tipping. I don't know. I've had a lot of galactic life, so it could have been many different
oh
things.
yeah.
Special.
Somebody wrote me the other day, and they're like, we're from such and such, and I'm like, that could be true, but we're from everywhere. I mean, like,
Yeah.
this is which is another interesting thing, and we could talk about next time too. Is the whole, the significance of, and the what seems to be occurring is the memories coming in. There's
Yeah.
such, like, it's not like a little red pill. It's
Yeah.
like this giant, this giant bubble that just consumes you. You find yourself in. It's like your
Yeah.
personal akashic that I'm seeing
Yeah.
people start to reflect and express, and I'm starting,
Yeah.
and it's
And
amazing. It's all mind
and
blowing.
I think the connection between feeling and sensing and knowing what's yours and what's not yours when you start to meld as one,
Yeah,
like really to get clear about how that works, because I
yeah,
would love to have a conversation about that with you, Todd.
yeah. That would be a good conversation. We'll do it. We'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melina
Oh,
Ferguson, and
thanks, darling. That was
nice.
beautiful.
It was nice meeting
Yeah.
you, and I look forward to future collaborations. And what do we have here? I don't know. Well, I'm not sure what we have coming up. I think we're done for the day. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, but we are going to have a show tomorrow with Glennis Keynes, and we're also going to do an 11:11 at 11:11 p.m. New York time, a special production. So, see you later, Mish. Best to
See
you.
you